Hey, good morning, folks. This is Stan Scrabbit from Jamestown Community College, and I'm not sure if this thing is going to go or not, but we're going to find out. I'm getting serious lag problems, so we'll see. But basically, we're here to talk about Twitter and how it can work in a classroom education. And so I have a little presentation put together, talk to you a little bit about Twitter. Basically, what it is, how you could use it in your classroom. So it shouldn't take too awful long. And just a couple things. If you are seeing this from Google+, which you should be, up in the right-hand corner of the video screen, you'll see a Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them my way, and I'll be happy to share them out. So in the meantime, let me go ahead and share out my presentation. So this is Twitter in education. So one of the things that's kind of important to think about is how pervasive that Twitter is. You can't go anywhere basically without hearing about Twitter. You'll see it on websites. Television shows even have Twitter, and they're tremendously smart on how they use it. One of the shows that I see that I really like, and I like how they're leveraging Twitter, is The Voice. They're having contests where people are saved on the show simply because of Twitter. As an educator, you're probably figuring out, okay, I've heard about Twitter, but is it appropriate for my classroom? How can I use it in my classroom and make it effective? One of the things that you don't want to do is waste a lot of time implementing a new tool. If you don't know it's going to work, if you're not sure how to use it, are you wasting time? For me personally, Twitter has been an extremely powerful professional learning tool, and I have used this in classes very effectively, just trying to get everybody's thoughts. And the fact that it's so ubiquitous makes it very useful. So you want to be able to, pull together a set of strategies, ways that you can leverage this. Everything from research to gathering information, just polling people, analyzing data. Great tool for pulling this all together. So what I'm going to do is show you how to leverage Twitter and give you ideas on how you can use this in your classroom. So the first thing we have to figure out, let me go back one, is you have to understand the tool, okay? And Twitter is nothing more than a tool. Just as you would use a piece of chalk in your classroom or a document camera, Twitter is a tool. And it's a very powerful tool because you're leaving the bounds of your classroom and touching the world. So, very powerful tool. First of all, I would kind of equate this to a radio broadcasting station where everybody has their own station and they can send out signals. So if you have a class of 30 people, you can have 30 different radio stations sending signals. The key to it is that just kind of like a radio, you're kind of tuning the radio. You decide what channels that you want to listen to. And so Twitter is the same thing, that when you first start, unless you do a search, it's pretty empty and pretty vacant. But as soon, as you start finding these radio stations, you can start tapping into them and then start getting the benefit from Twitter. Important to note that messages come out in real time, and that's one of the things that makes Twitter very powerful, that Google is the #1 search engine, YouTube is the #2 search engine, and Twitter has been said to be the #3 search engine. If you're looking for things that are happening in real time about real events, Twitter is the place to go. It was possible to follow the events in Ferguson in real time. It was possible to follow, Ohio State's national championship and the results from that in real time. Twitter is very powerful for those things. You can sit at home watching a Twitter stream of a conference that is happening. If they're using a hashtag, you can watch the different sessions and maybe even zero in on very specific sessions using Twitter. And that's where it makes it tremendously useful and powerful. Everything is chronological, which adds to sometimes the mess because it's hard to follow sometimes specific conversations. You can, and I'll show you ways to do that. But normally, if you're just looking at your Twitter stream, it's maybe hundreds of people having their conversations, and you're trying to make sense of it. One of the I think good points, and a lot of people think bad points, is that messages are only 140 characters. For a writing course, trying to narrow everything down into 140 characters is challenging, but it makes for a great writing exercise. Being able to control that information down to 140 characters and say what you intend to say, and kind of hone the craft of writing. One of the fortunate things is by using web links, you can link to other resources, other materials that individuals can benefit from. And so you can get actually a lot done in 140 characters. Plus, you don't always have to use just one message to get the word out. You can use multiple messages, and that will help kind of craft out your story. Some individuals have used Twitter as talking like as an author, that they act out the role and they use basically dialogue, and you may have multiple people having that dialogue all across Twitter. So interesting ways that you can use it. And I can't stress this enough. Twitter is not a private conversation. If you put it on Twitter, expect it to be public. There are ways that you can have direct messages, between another person, but don't rely on that. I have made mistakes, and just assume everything's public. If you do not want somebody to see it, do not put it on Twitter. Okay, Twitter is for, basically world consumption. So the other benefit about Twitter is you can use this on all kinds of devices, right? You can use it on smartphones, and you can use it on, featured phones, and you can use it on computers and iPads, all kinds of ways. At a very basic level, you can use Twitter from your computer, right? So this is typically where you start, that you create a Twitter account on your computer, and with that account, you can go in and indicate what's happening. And there's thanks to the media, there's a misconception that the only thing on Twitter is figuring out what somebody is eating for breakfast. And I have to be honest, if that's all you posted, I'm not following you. Like I said, I've used Twitter for professional development, and it's a tremendously powerful tool for professional development, and I follow people that have something intelligent to say. So if folks are not saying anything intelligent, I'm basically not following them. So the previous place I worked, Extension, right? We got some clever people out there doing work in Extension, and I managed to follow a lot of them and make great contacts, great networking, and on those rare occasions we got to meet each other face to face. But we already knew a lot about each other. We ended up, inviting others to come give presentations. I got invited for presentations, all because of Twitter. And it starts with your basic Twitter account and the website. You can also use this on your cell phone. So if you have a smartphone, there is a Twitter application and you can see everything in Twitter, but you can also send messages on a featureless phone. So there is a number, 40404, and you have to basically register your phone, and when you do that, you can go ahead and send messages from your phone. Okay. One of the powerful things is this turns it into a learn anywhere type device or program, that you don't have to wait until you're in the front of your computer in order to send messages, that you can sit there on your phone, and maybe you're sitting on a bus commuting, or on a train, or you're waiting in the dentist's office or doctor's office waiting for your appointment, and you can go through your Twitter stream and contribute to the Twitter stream while you're just sitting there during those times. Anytime that you happen to just have an idea that's worth sharing with others, you can send a message. I do a lot of my Twitter use, sitting in front of TV or just listening to music, and just as I'm relaxing in the evening and going through a Twitter feed, or just participating in what's happening in the world, maybe watching a television show and contributing. So I have participated. One of the very, I think, interesting exercises that you can do, and this would be great for political sciences, is that the State of the Union is going to be coming up. So having students sit and watch the State of the Union, and there's usually a hashtag associated with that crops up very quickly, and watching what the public is saying at the state at the same time. Tremendously fascinating to watch that. I think I'm going to present that to the poli-sci folks. So, and you can also, there's also third-party applications, HootSuite, TweetDeck, among many others, that you can sit there and watch a Twitter stream. The nice things about those programs is you can have, for example, multiple Twitter accounts and send a single message to multiple accounts if appropriate. You can follow search queries. You can follow hashtags. You can follow lists. One of the things in Twitter that you can do is you can create a list. And so if you had students in your class in Twitter, you would find out what their usernames were in Twitter, put them into a list so you can watch what the conversation was going for that particular list. And it's also a way to communicate out to that list. The other part of understanding the tool is understanding the jargon that's behind the tool. So Twitter has its own language. You have a tweet, which is your basic message. You have a retweet, which is taking someone else's message and pushing it back out. You're replying to messages. You have direct messages. You have hashtags. So there's a little bit of a language to understand Twitter. Fortunately, it's a very small, easy to use type language. So in Twitter, at the website, at the very top of the screen, you have what's happening. This is where you can go ahead and just simply type your message and send it out to the world and let them know, what important information that you have. But also, for each of these messages, you have the ability to do what's called a retweet, and there is a button that you press that allows you to take somebody's message that you see in your stream. And so basically your stream is the messages that are coming in, and you have the ability to resend that out to your group. So this is how something becomes viral. I may be following 100 people, or 100 people are following me. And when I get a message and I send it out, 100 people, that'll be part of their stream. And one of those people can retweet my message, and they may have 100 people, and there may be some overlap, but maybe not. And so that kind of keeps spreading out, and that's how, you know, a message tends to go viral. So to reply to somebody, you usually start with the @ sign followed by their username, and as long as that's in the message, they will receive a message if they receive notifications indicating that somebody has included them in the conversation directly. Okay? So that's important. So if you want somebody to know very specifically, you just add the @ username or @ and their username into the message, and they will get a notification typically. When you retweet, what you're doing is you're also adding the letters RT. So RT space @ whoever's username, and basically you are giving them credit for that particular message. You know, that this is not a message that you originated. You like the message, you want to send it on, and so you basically retweet and forward that particular message. As I mentioned earlier, Twitter is very much public, but you have the ability to send somebody a direct message and basically have kind of a closed conversation where the world is not seeing that conversation. In order to do that, you put a D space and then the individual's username. And with that, they will get a direct message, and typically they'll respond, and you can have a conversation back and forth. Once again, do not rely on the fact that you know, it's a closed conversation. Anything that's in digital form can grab legs and move into the public sphere very easy. So a hashtag, a lot of folks are confused by a hashtag, and a hashtag is that number sign. You know, basically the shift 3 and a word. A word, a phrase, it has to be, it cannot have any spaces in it. Normally conferences will have a word, so for example, one of the conferences I want to go to this year is the Association for Talent Development, and I suspect their hashtag will be that number sign, the hash, ATD 2015, all one word. And what that does is, think of it as a conference. So this particular conference has 9,000 people in it. And if we were all in the same room, all 9,000 people, and everybody was talking, there is a lot of buzz, and it's hard to follow all the conversations. But typically at a conference, you have breakout sessions. And by going to that breakout session, it is a smaller group where many people may be having conversations, right? There is a question and answering session, but it's very much restricted to that room. And so that's what a hashtag does, is it basically creates that room for you where you can have that conversation, and you can focus on that conversation. So normally you'd use a program like Tweetchat in order to follow that conversation, and you'd be able to reply to it, and it would add that hashtag as part of that conversation. And that's the way to kind of have focus. So the television show, The Voice, they have the hashtag The Voice, and messages about that television show are around that conversation. But then they have these little breakout tweets or hashtags that they focus on various parts of the show, and so it's something that they create on the fly. I'm sure these guys they plan it months ahead of time, but basically it's something that you can create. So for your classroom, you could have the hashtag, say, I don't know, POL 1, 2, 3, right? So political science is 1, 2, 3, 2 if it's section 2. And you just inform your students that you're using that particular hashtag anytime they have messages related to the class, and you can then watch that conversation. So that's another way of doing that. So why use this tool? Okay, so we have various advantages and disadvantages to using this particular communication tool. And it is, first of all, it is a tool and it's used for communication. So the first thing is things are short, right? You don't have somebody dominating a conversation that they can come in and watch it, participate in the conversation. Everybody gets a chance. It's restrained to 140 characters. It's easy to kind of skim through. Everybody's got an equal voice in this, and then it's just a matter of how many tweets that you can get out. Okay, so you're not spending a lot of time reading narrative to get to the point. That things are very short. Great way of sharing ideas, and if your idea really leaps to the forefront, it can go viral and get out to as many people as you want. So one is understanding how really Twitter works and participate in that. And if you're new to Twitter, you're going to start out by listening. But if you see something that you like, feel free to retweet it. And once you've done this a couple times, then start adding your own information. And pretty soon you are very much an active Twitter user. And if you're in the Jamestown Community College area, I'd love to sit down and show you how you can leverage this. Updates, you can receive it from different methods. That's what we talked about a little earlier. The power of this is being able to get that information wherever you are at, different devices. You could be sitting in the cafeteria waiting for another meeting to start and be actively learning and participating. Some disadvantages. For folks that are used to a certain way of communicating, Twitter can be a little tough, okay? First of all, if you're following, I think I'm following like 400, 500 people, and if I look at the Twitter stream, it is tremendously messy and sometimes tough to follow. So you have to be clever to use some of these tools like HootSuite or TweetDeck to isolate conversations, to filter them to things that you're interested in. And just, whatever research interest that you have, you can plug that in. Or if you're following a certain hashtag, you can plug that in and follow just that part of the conversation. And it helps kind of, helps basically, your mind put patterns around things. So that's useful if you're using those tools. There are some folks that have a tough time with 140 characters. They just simply need more. But this is, and they're probably the ones that really need a 140 character limit. So for some folks, they just don't feel that they can get their message across in 140 characters. I just encourage, give it a try. A lot of folks are using it, and there seems to be more every day. Twitter can be overwhelming at times. You have this stream of information that is coming at you, and unless you learn how to filter it, how to control that, it can be overwhelming, and to the point where people get frustrated. It's like, okay, they're not finding the use in it. Very important to get the right tools, a TweetDeck, a HootSuite, to be able to control that conversation. Reasons that you would want to use it. For nothing else, it's a great feedback tool. Okay, that whatever you're doing, whether you're in a class, and you can have Twitter running in the background for your class if you want. And that's a great exercise. You can use a program like Tweetchat, put up on the board what the hashtag is, encourage your students to comment to that hashtag, and you can bring it up every once in a while, kind of review questions. So there may be some folks that are reluctant to get up and speak in class, especially students who are coming from a foreign country, that they have a lot of things going on, and sometimes they're not as confident with the English language as a native speaker would be, and maybe with Twitter, they can express themselves. So it's just another tool to help find out how things are going. So this is this idea of a back channel. And so you can, using that hashtag, run that hashtag in, a Google search. You can also, you can run that in Tweetchat. Tweetchat is probably, if you're following a hashtag in real time, Tweetchat is perhaps my favorite, because it'll keep a running stream and you can participate on the fly. Very powerful tool, but basically it allows you to kind of follow this whole conversation. You can use Google search, right? Twitter search for looking at phrases or key concepts. So if you're in your class and maybe you're talking about current history, and you want to know about, say, President Obama's plans for community colleges, that you can pull that up in real time and see what people are saying about that. Now, I'm going to caution you. Sometimes, we're dealing with adult language here, and especially for controversial issues, people are speaking their minds. So you never can tell what's going to come up on Twitter, and that's just the reality of the internet. No matter how much we want to avoid maybe certain languages in classrooms, that is something that could possibly happen. Teach proper netiquette, to your students, and encourage them not to get into that kind of conversation. And as I said, you can get input from people that are normally silent, somebody that has a disability, somebody where English is not the native language if you're teaching in the United States, individuals that are very much introverts and have trouble expressing themselves in a larger class, that get dominated by the select few who are always part of the conversation. So it's great for getting input from them. All right, so let's talk about some ways that we can actually weave Twitter into the classroom. So, for me, I'm separating this into three different parts. Things that you can do before your class even starts, and maybe even before the term even starts. Things that you can do during your class. Things that you can do after the class and after the term ends. So here are some ideas. So let's start with, what can you do before your students even get there? Maybe they had a chance to read the syllabus. Maybe one of the things that you talked about in your syllabus was leveraging Twitter and giving them a hashtag to follow. Well, it'd be interesting to see where they're going. So you can ask questions to students to find out more about them, right? So maybe you're looking for some background information, asking them some of these icebreaker questions, getting them to be involved in talking and get going as far as getting to learn about them. The more you know about your students and you can tap into that as part of the class, the more effective that your class is. one of the strategies is always tap into previous experiences. So finding out about those experiences is really important. Ask, on Twitter, maybe, before the class even starts. Maybe this is preparation for a workshop. You can leverage Twitter and, find out what they hope to get from the class. What are some key takeaways, so you can tailor your class to ensure that you're addressing the needs of the learners. So going out and reaching out there. As I mentioned, icebreakers. You can do some icebreaking events on Twitter. So a close cousin to Twitter I think, is Instagram. It's the visual cousin. And Instagram, you may want them to capture some photos, capture maybe some images that personify, the individual without faces. Maybe you're looking for, I don't know, pictures of trophies or Letterman jackets, or their favorite car or food or what have you, and having them use Twitter and imagery to show about them prior to class even starting, and that would help them get to know each other. So in class, lots of stuff to do in class. Oh man, this is probably the best. First of all, you can follow subject matter experts. There are directories out there that list, in this case it's called Scientists on Twitter, all these different scientists that are out there talking about their science. And it is across a spectrum of different topics. And having your students research and go find some of these and maybe follow those individuals and report out what they're discovering. So that's an exercise. You can have them follow a particular topic or a subject matter expert, and maybe part of a weekly journal report out what this individual or group of individuals is saying about this particular topic. Trending, any trending subjects. This is great for courses that are talking about current events, that you can pull up these Twitter trends and see what the hashtags are that are very much in the news, and being able to dial into those and see what the conversation is and what people are thinking and talking about. The back channel. I would strongly encourage that you create a Twitter hashtag for your particular class, and with that hashtag, run it throughout the term, encourage students to participate in it, and maybe even during a class, sometime at the end of the class, or maybe at the beginning of the class, pull it up, look at what concerns they have, what questions they have, and use that as a way to start the class or summarize the class, and just tapping into what they're saying. It can be a great place for students to go in for support. Maybe a way to ask questions between the class that other students, if they're following also that particular hashtag, may be able to jump in and answer those questions. Or, as I said, it's out there for the public. You may actually tap into an external audience that would maybe provide help or guidance. If there's someone struggling with a Blackboard issue, there's a lot of other people in the world that are using Blackboard, and somebody could come to their rescue, and they find out that if your learners or students find out that the world is got a bunch of great people that are willing to help others in need, and that one of the powerful things is being able to tap into that world knowledge and contribute to that world knowledge. use it as a forum where students can, kind of talk back and forth and, discuss the course material, out with the rest of the world. How they're getting through, where they're struggling. Maybe some things can be passed back and forth as far as dealing with the course material and specifically. Sharing resources and great ideas, right? So, as an instructor, you're bringing, information into the classroom, right? But if you have 30 additional people in your class, those are 30 other resources that you can tap into that can contribute to the class, and therefore everybody gains from that. You as the instructor may find new resources that you were not aware of. The students get to tap in. Maybe you can use this as a learning example where maybe a student brings in a resource that's not necessarily, it's not something that you would recommend. So turn it into a learning moment. It's like, well, let's look at this. Let's be critical and apply that critical thinking. Why is this not probably the best resource, or how could you find a resource that's stronger, and use that as a teaching moment. Split up the class into 2 groups and have an online debate over a subject. That can get quite interesting, right? Who knows where that goes? You have to make sure we keep it civil, but you can have an online conversation, a discussion, weigh in on two sides of an issue. Role play scenarios, right? Use this, business and marketing courses. You could use this to kind of role play customer service. We have nursing. One of the key things is nursing and social media. How to stay in compliant with HIPAA, but also have a life. And maybe you're assigned a patient throughout the term. And how does that conversation play out into social media as you're trying to help your patient? So different ways of possibly role playing. Historically, have somebody take on Churchill, and someone take on Roosevelt and Stalin, and have a conversation from their perspective and their point of view, which requires them to research and then kind of express themselves and have a dialogue back and forth related to what they were going through at that period of time. Reflecting on whatever it is, an article, a film, have the students watch this and then also share their input and see where what their input. If everybody's watching the same film, this is a great place to maybe ask a question. One of the tools out there is called it's called a Tweetchat or Twitter chat, and there are regularly scheduled conversations that happen on Twitter. Matter of fact, I think one is happening at 2 o'clock today, and in that conversation, it's scheduled, it's around a hashtag, and the host goes out and presents a question, and then everybody participating in that chat will give their answers. Well, you could do the same thing as part of your class. Say, okay, we're going to do this all over Twitter. We're going to be talking about this film, and over this period of time, this 1 hour, I'm going to ask questions, and I would like you to come on and have that conversation. You can do it as a classroom exercise. Everybody's sitting around, their phones or their iPads, or maybe they have their computers there, and participating in that in the real world, and see what happens if you can get some external dialogue maybe as part of that conversation. The nice thing is you have a written record. Brainstorming. Once again, you can use Twitter, have Tweetchat running in the background on your slide, on the wall, and throw up a question, you know, and brainstorm around that question, but use Twitter as a way to capture that information and see where individuals go with that. Taking a pulse, right? There are tools out there to like TwitPoll, that you can go ahead and, you know, ask a question. The Voice, they do this very well when they're participating in elimination rounds that they try to save somebody. You know, they may have 3 people there, they need to save 1, and they will poll the world to see who they should save. And you can do the exact same thing in your class, running a poll through Twitter. Language classes. Great writing exercise, having a conversation in another language in Twitter. Maybe have a hashtag and, you know, start the conversation and see where it goes, have people contribute, and it's kind of challenging, especially at intro-level classes. But they can also speak with native speakers. You know, tap into some folks that you know that are using Twitter in the world for your language, and, you know, ask them to be part of that conversation. Conduct various formative and summative evaluations. You know, maybe, you know, asking questions, you know, get their assessment of where they're in the course, what areas are they struggling with. Maybe ask questions, you know, looking for the right answers. But you have another tool, you know, to kind of assess where you're at. But Twitter doesn't just end, you know, when your class ends. You know, after class, lots of great things. You can encourage conversations to continue on well after your class is finished for the term. You know, you can invite them to participate with that. For conferences, as I mentioned with conferences, that the Twitter hashtag for the conference can and should start well before the conference even starts. There is conversation that will start generating around that hashtag. During the conference, you will have a wealth of conversation going on. But the amazing thing is, this conversation will go on days, weeks, even months past that conference when it finished. People still sharing and excited about the material they learned and trying to figure out how to implement this, right? So the same can happen for your class. Ask students for feedback on your class. You know, class is done, grades are in. Ask them, you know, where they would recommend improvements to the class. You know, you can always get feedback. Jane Bozarth, she wrote this book, Social Media for Trainers. This is where I got the wealth of my information. And I recommend this. This is a good book, but there's a lot of other resources out there. We have a web page, and see if I can share that resource. I'm going to showcase a resource and that we're building on, and let me add this. So the showcase is up in the, it'll be up in the corner, up in the right-hand corner. And there's, you know, you should be able to toggle and find that particular showcase. And let's see what we have. I don't mind showing that. All right. All right. So I added this SUNY JCC Technology Enhanced Instruction. That's the website that we're leveraging right now. And I will be adding information about Twitter in the classroom. So feel free to check that out. And I'm going to go ahead and post this also on the website as a blog post, so you can find it later. So for those that were here, and I saw Steve and Judd checked in, hey, thanks for showing up. So that's it for now.